Hey, it's MK, and I am here with a Baby Got Scraps layout for you guys today. And today I am going to be documenting these photos from the Hawthorne Ordnance Museum. I did have to go and reprint one photo because for some reason it blew it up extra large and I couldn't read all the words on there. So went and reprinted. I've got some film strips from the Advent calendar. I've got this really cool United States piece, some scraps of film strips from 49 and Market, a scrap of camouflage. These cute little stars came from the little tugboat piece that I think was back in April. Oh my gosh, that was a while ago. These cute little airplanes from the November box, and these are my scraps. Now, this piece right here actually isn't a scrap. It's, I believe, an 8x6. That came from a Tim Holtz collection, but it is smaller than 12 by 12, so it passes as a scrap. And then these two pieces here, one is from the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Coastal line, and the other one is Minte Garage. And I'm going to put the two together to create a 12 by 12 layout. Like I'm going to weld them together, mesh them together to make my 12 by 12 base that I need. But I don't want to use the entire piece of denim, so that way I can have a photo mat to back my my pictures with. Now, I'm not going to go into huge detail about these photos. I had an entire speech set up. I had the history of these, of this particular unit. I mean, I had it all ready to voiceover. I did the entire voiceover and then realized that it's not my cup of tea to talk about on the air type of deal. I just don't want the controversy. I don't want the politics. I don't want any of that on my channel. So I'm going to talk about why I even took these photos. I took these photos because my kids enjoy the living daylights out of this ordnance museum. Now, what an ordnance museum is a weapons museum. It's the history of weaponry, and it's not just the United States weaponry. We've got German weapons there, and I say we like I'm part of the museum. I'm not. There's German weapons there. There's British weapons there. I believe there's even Russian. I want to say Russian weapons in this museum, and my kids, and of course they're kids, right? My kids enjoy seeing them. They enjoy the craftsmanship of what goes into a weapon. And I hate to say that, because I'm getting back into politics again, controversies, things like that. Do you teach your kids about them? Well, I do. Yes, my family chooses to. Because then they know how to respond to them is basically how I'm going to leave that right there. But the thing that my kids enjoy is to watch something change over time. That's what they enjoy, right? Have you ever seen one of those fast forward, cool little videos of like a Mercedes-Benz? And it starts off what looked like a Model T and works all its way up to, the 30s and 40s and all the bling and big cars that, I mean, just were massive and awesome. And down to these sleek, aerodynamic, beautiful machines that we have today. Well, I hate to say it, but weapons are the same way. I mean, they went from, these single shot muskets all the way up to what they are now. And I mean, they're just, the history of things like this is fascinating. And I do it for my children. I really do. This is one of the ones that my kids were very, very interested in. They sat there and read that entire plaque, and it was probably as tall as my youngest daughter was 2 years ago. She hit a growth spurt. Now she's taller than I am. It's her dad's fault. But yeah, they sat there and they read the whole history behind this particular unit. And it has a sad history. I'm not going to lie. All weapons have sad histories at one point in time, at one point in their lives, right? Because they were built for a specific reason. And this particular one has a huge history that still affects us to this day. And not us here in the United States, but in the world, right? It still affects the world. It still affects the United States, and all that stuff. Now, you guys can definitely go and I will share the information for you guys to go and read it. I will send you the picture so you can read it yourselves. I mean, I will share the information because I found the history behind these interesting, but the long-term effects saddening, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it, because again, I don't want, this to be depressing. I don't want this to become a depressing layout. Like I said, I'm recording the fact that my kids, remember this, and every time that we walk in to the Ordnance Museum, which we go there on our way to June Lake, is honestly, and the reason why we go there is because they do trade-offs. They trade off larger units, tanks, helicopters, trucks. They trade those off with other museums. And I don't know if the other museums are just history museums or if they're ordnance museums themselves or anything like that. Now, this particular year, they traded a U.S. tank for a British tank. And so we got to climb around and check out a British tank. Well, the problem with the British tank, and it's not really a huge problem, but they just barely got it the same week that we showed up to say hi, right? To check out the museum and what was new in the museum. And so it wasn't really picture ready. And they were figuring a few things out before they go and put it out in front of the museum like they usually do. So it was kind of hard for me to take pictures of. I still did take pictures of it because we weren't going to come back through Hawthorne to on our way back home from June Lake. And so I took what pictures I could. It's still a really cool unit to be going and looking at. But yeah, we go there to go and see what new things they trade off with. And they keep them for X amount of time, and then and then they bring in something new, and it's just cool, that other countries share their history with us, right? That other countries, because we fought side by side and all that stuff. And so I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was really cool that there's an entire section for the German army, a small section. And I do say small. I don't know if it was just because of the lack of sharing. I'm not really sure, you guys. I don't work there. But there was a small section of the Russian, some of the Russian uniforms, the Russian guns. Those were cool, I'd have to say. And my kids, like I said, it takes us hours to go through a museum. My kids want to read the things. My kids want to look at the things and understand, why is this here? It's just as interesting as the train museums. My kids want to learn about what makes this train different than that train. What made this train awesome enough to end up in a museum? What is the history behind all of these things, right? And so it's just really super cool. It's really cool too because my grandfather's uniform is in the museum. He's got a plaque there. So we go and say hi to Grandpa. We also stop by, his memorial and say hi to him there. But he lives in the museum to my kids. Like at the memorial site, he's just a name on a wall, right? But in the museum, we can see him. And so that's why we go to the museum. We go and read the history, all the things to read, and also, of course, to see what's new. The guys love showing my kids all the different things. And they're vets that have volunteered to keep this museum alive. And I just think that it's just the coolest thing ever, that they want to share the history, and they love it when they find kids that want to know about it. And so it is just super cool to watch them interact with the younger generation and whatnot. And, sometimes we've sat down and heard their stories. and whatnot, and what, one of them worked on a aircraft carrier, and what his job was. That was super cool. Another one was, oh golly, what was he? Anyways, it's just super cool. And the fact that my kids will sit there for hours and listen to what it is. They hope and pray every time that we go there that someone will walk through the museum and tell them something new that they haven't learned yet about specific ones. There's another photo that we took too, where the gentleman was there and he actually loaded those types of missiles onto the airplanes. And so we got to hear like insights that weren't on the plaque, which was super cool to my kids. And my kids, I mean, this was, well, technically it was only 2 years ago. And I mean, normally you can't get teenagers to be interested in anything. But my kids are just, if it's about history, my kids are all for it. All right, so I had to fast forward a lot of the embellishing because the stringamathingies were giving me a hard time. Now, I really, really, really wanted to portray, you know how when they had the bomb raids going across Europe, I wanted to portray that on my layout. Now, I know that's awful of me to do that. It just, I know it's not anything to be happy about, anything exciting to be about or anything, but, it was what I thought of when I think of this type of unit, that is in the photo. And so I wanted to portray that on my layout. And then I wanted words to go down in the embellishments as well. And, so my main title is going to be Remember. And then, of course, I found the word take risks because every war or every fight is a risk. Even if it's not a war, it's still a fight. And then, of course, over on the right side, I said through it all, remember how we got here. And I really think that that's important. I really think that knowing the history will help people in the long run. I mean, this is part of our history. Unfortunately, we can't change it. We can't replace it. We can't do anything about it. It's part of our history. And if we forget, if we, pretend it didn't exist, then, not my biggest, but I feel like if we try to forget instead of remember how we got there, then it's just going to repeat itself in all honesty. And I know that's a cliche because people have said that all the time. But honestly, I thought it was a cool effect of having these words trickle down through the airplanes flying across my page or up my page. And I just really liked how this worked. And as I was working on this, my kids came in and, oh man, they started telling me all about these. And they remembered, and it was 2 years ago. So they remembered all about them, and it was fun to look up the numbers. It was not fun, like, it just makes my heart happy that they remember. It really does. So anyways, that is my layout for today. I just want to thank you guys for those that have stuck around and watched it all come together and heard me talk. I tried to hold back tears because, this was my grandpa's museum. And I still remember him every time we walk in. So anyways, there's a long list of folks down below that are playing along with Baby Got Scraps. So don't forget to go check them out down below. Again, I can't thank you enough for those that have stuck through this and hung out with me today. I really appreciate it. I do have a couple more of these types of videos that I plan on doing for this month. And it's okay if they're not your cup of tea. It really is. I get it. I totally get it. So I appreciate, the stopping by anyways. So thank you. Anyways, talk to y'all later. Bye.